It's Pyram King, and I'm really excited to bring to you another adventure in Legends of Barovia, an expanded campaign for Curse of Strahd. And this is part one of the Pillar of Ravenloft. This is an adventure, late game campaign adventure. Party should be level 8 to level 10. Of course, you can adjust it for your party. But this takes place in the actual pillar, that 1,000-foot monolithic stone rock in which Castle Ravenloft sits on. Well, inside of it is hollow. There's a secret entrance to get inside. There's all kinds of mayhem, as well as a secret entrance into the catacombs of Ravenloft. We're going to be jumping right into it. Before I get started, huge shout out to all of my supporters making this happen. If you are interested in this content or the Foundry Adventure modules, you can become a member by clicking on the link down below, getting access to all the Foundry modules and the bonus content and everything. I also have a bunch of free PDF guides. You can find those on my website. I'll put a link down there below. So let's jump into part one of the Pillar of Ravenloft. So we're going to start off outside here. We got some great Theater of the Mind maps, but it's important for you to understand, what's this all about? What does this have to do with anything? How is it connected to Legends of Barovia and the lore? And why would the party be even interested in going through here? I got to answer all those questions first before we jump into it. And here we are. We've got our brave adventurer out here. He's outside the pillar. That's the big stone rock face right there going straight up. The top of that is Castle Ravenloft. This location, by the way, is across from the Tesser Pools. You have to go through the forest to the base of that rocky cliff pillar. If you've ever been to Yosemite in California, imagine El Capitan. Well, I think that's 3,000 feet. That 3,000-foot rock, you're at the base of that. That's what this is. And the cave is somewhere over here. So let's talk about the history first here. The first thing we need to understand is, what is this place? So I'm going to just give you a brief synopsis of this, but if you're going to run this, I suggest reading this. So before there was man in this valley, there was elves. Elves lived in this valley, and they worshipped the Night Fae. She was the keeper of dreams, a celestial observer. That was their goddess. Now, unbeknownst to these elves, she was actually a shadow fae trying to infiltrate this mortal realm. Now, the Night Fae materialized, and this is her here, materialized inside. She found a portal inside the Pillar of Ravenloft that connected the shadow realm to the mortal realm. And she convinced these elves to worship her. Obviously, they did. They eventually built a temple to her, and over the centuries, they became corrupted, and they became the Dusk Elves. So this is how the Dusk Elves came into being. They were corrupted by the Shadow Fae, eventually became Dusk Elves by worshiping the Shadow Fae. Now, centuries passed, and then when man bothered to show up here, the Night Fae, the secret Shadow Fae, realized this was a threat. And so she convinced the Dusk Elves at this point that these humans are a threat. They must be disposed of, and we must call upon the Shadow Realm, its dark powers, to dispose of them. But she needed the Dusk Elves' help. So they created a ritual which created a binding ritual between the mortal realm of where Barovia is and the Shadow Realm, and it pulled through these dark vestiges. Now, these dark vestiges, these dark powers infiltrated Barovia. Trees and plants began to wither. Creatures, monstrous creatures, started roaming the land. And the human druids who were worshiping the Fae called upon the Fae for help. And the Fae agreed. And the Fae tracked down, along with the druids, these dark vestiges. They encased them in amber, and they built the Amber Temple to imprison these dark vestiges in these amber sarcophagi. And the Fae sisters, had tracked down the Night Fae, realizing the Night Fae is actually a Shadow Fae, and it was her that allowed the dark vestiges to seep into the land. There was this epic battle between the three Fae sisters and the Shadow Fae. The Shadow Fae retreated further into the pillar and escaped into the Shadow Realm. One of the Dusk Elf priests locked the door inside the temple within the pillar with some powerful spell, so using the powers of the moon to lock the door. Meanwhile, the Fae are launching this cataclysmic battle. They shake the entire pillar. The temple falls into ruins. The entrance is blocked, and centuries go by. Now, everybody thinks the Shadow Fae is gone. the Dusk Elves, the remaining Dusk Elves, scatter off into the forest, into the woods. There's only a handful of them remaining that are now living with Vistani. And that was centuries ago. This happened centuries before Strahd was even born. Now, this lore, this mythical story is only known to a handful of people. It's known to Casimir, the last of the Dusk Elves, the leader of the Dusk Elves. He's found in the Vistani camp. It's known to Kazan, who's now Xanthar, the Lich who's lost his memory, restore his memory. He'll remember this. It's known to Elder Balin. He's the last of the Druids living in the village of Bargau up in near Salinka Pass. He knows this story. And so to the Faes. Now, the Faes believe they destroyed the temple. So the players can learn about this through a variety of means, including Van Richten started recording some information about this in a book which can be found in the Wizard's Tower. So I actually have several different things in here where the players can learn about this, including the Vistani in the Tesser Pool camp. They know there's an ancient cave. They know there's some ancient temple there. Beyond that, they don't know much. And there's a rumor that if you can get through the ruins of the temple, there's a secret entrance into Ravenloft. So there's a secret entrance into Ravenloft, which is known among a select handful of people. However, Strahd does not know about this. And these handful of individuals, Elder Balin, Casimir, the Dusk Elf, Kazan, and the Fae, have kept this a closely guarded secret, because even though the temple's been destroyed, even though the entrance has been sealed, the last thing they want is for Strahd to find out that beneath his castle was an ancient temple devoted to the Shadow Fae with a portal to the Shadow Realm that are the ones that brought the dark powers into existence. So they certainly don't want Strahd to know. So this provides a unique opportunity for the players to find a secret entrance into Ravenloft, provided they can navigate the difficulties and the adventures going through this ruined temple, up through inside the pillar into the catacombs of Ravenloft. So this is a fun adventure. There's multiple ways where the players can find out about this location, and then they venture here to the base of the cliff. And this is where we start the adventure, at the base of the cliff here. So here we are. We've got a Theater of the Mind map here. We're at the base of the cliff. We're going to come here to the entrance here. So here we are at the entrance of the cliff. We've got this gorgeous battle map we're going to show you by DM Andy. Again, in here we've got the battle map. This is the 4K version, WebP, that we're going to be looking at. But if you're interested in the 8K version, or the ones with some special effects, check his Patreon out. I put a link in the description down below. So let's jump into the battle map here, and we're going to take a look, and we're going to walk through this entire adventure together. This video is timestamped down below. So the first thing is we have this cave, and we're going to start outside this cave right here with our adventurer. And you can see the player characters will start outside this cave in this battle map, and there's the secret entrance right there. They've learned about that. Either they've done that quest for Leo, found out what happened to Leo and told the Vistani. Maybe they told them about where this is, and they venture across the Tesser Pool and find the entrance. Okay, so this is a pretty narrow entrance, and once the characters get into this entrance, you have the main section of the main cavern right here. And they're going to notice, I'm going to close this here. I'll show you what I've done here. They're going to notice that there is a passage off to the west up here into the cave. If they go forward, the passage is blocked by a bunch of boulders and rocks. And there's also it looks like a passage right over here to the east that's also closed up here. So let's talk a little bit about this central cavern. So as they get into the central cavern, they're going to notice that there's been a cave in here. Once they get in the cave, in a little bit of area, there's a small rise to their left that goes up into the cavern. They can hear there's some cold, damp air coming through there. And then to their right, there looks like there's been a small rubble of cave-in. Now this little cave-in over here, this rubble over here, they can move those rocks within about 10 minutes. They can clear that and make it their way through here. The entrance to the north, however, there's a lot of boulders here. And it's going to take them 1d10 plus 10 hours and a strength check of DC 18 to remove enough of that rubble. And if they start that, there's a 25% chance that they could be a cave-in anywhere, any creatures within 10 feet of where this is happening are going to suffer 66 bludgeoning damage as the rocks start caving in further and further here. So it is possible to get through here, but it's going to be a difficult task. This was the entrance that the Fae had collapsed, right? So let's go through this entrance. So that if the players clear this, there's a secret door, and I'm using secret doors in Foundry to, once the players have removed the rock, you open up the secret door and they can see through the passage. And I got a Theater of the Mind map for this. So they can open up this, they can see this passage, and that is this right here. Let's go here and activate that. You can see that scene. So this is that entrance. There was a bunch of rebel here. They've pulled this back and they go, oh, it looks like there's an entrance into some kind of temple here that's been carved into the rock. Now, if they enter into this temple, and we'll grab our adventurer here, they come into this room here, which is the annex in the temple. And the temple annex has some scrolling words along the wall, and it's written in Abyssal. So a character that can read the script Abyssal, if they read the script Abyssal, it's a prayer of the Night Fae, and I have the prayer written here. But if they read that prayer, what will happen is 1d4 plus 1 Shadow Priest emerge, and you've got a combat encounter in here. They will only come if you read the inscription or try to transcribe the inscription written along the walls in here. Now, these Shadow Priests are a modified stat block of the Shadow, and they've got a unique feature in here that's kind of a deadly feature. So it's a Shadow stat block. It's got a little bit more strength, dexterity, and constitution, 42 hit points in there. They have all the features of a normal Shadow, plus they have this action called a Dark Whisper. The Dark Whisper is on a recharge of a 6, and what this Dark Whisper does is it, within 60 feet of themselves, within a range, they can create this 10-foot area, sphere of darkness, that no light can penetrate, not even up to a level 8 light spell. And any creature that starts their turn in this Dark Whisper area, they hear whispers in there, and they will suffer 5d6 worth of psychic damage. So you're just casting that spell. I'll just put one in here and consume a charge. You can just place one right there, and there it is. So any character that's going to start their turn there. Now this actually lasts, it's on a recharge of a 6. It lasts for 2 rounds. So it starts to fade at the end of the second round. So for 2 rounds, this area is there. Now, the way I would play this, because these Shadow Priests, other than the Dark Whisper, which is on a recharge on a 6, this is a great way to block hallways or entrances, because if a player starts in that area, or if they place it in that area, they go through it, it's completely dark. They also have Strength Drain, which is similar to Shadow. So these aren't deadly creatures in and of themselves, but if they land that Strength Drain and they get players caught in that Dark Whispers, it can be a fairly difficult and frustrating encounter here. So again, they're only going to show up here in this annex area if the players read this prayer or decipher the prayer that's transcribed on the wall. So it's the prayer of the Night Fae. Remember, this is the temple to the Night Fae here. Let me get rid of that template here, and we're going to move on. And I'll show you what I'm using, because I use Monk's Active Tile triggers quite a bit. So here we go, and our adventurer continues to go this way, and they notice that there's a drop-off, and as soon as they go too far, the game's going to pause. I got a trigger there, and let me get rid of this Night Whisper, and it's going to go, yikes, a bottomless pit. So there's a bottomless pit right here, okay, that they can see, and they can see across. They can see across a bottomless pit. There's another set of stairs leading to another room right across, right up here, that you can see. Now, you can hear I've got a sound tile here. I'll just show you. When they get close to this, they're going to start hearing this sound. It's something's coming up from this bottomless pit. And we're going to run this encounter. Now, you can show this on the battle map. If I click on the on-off button over here, by the way, the players can't see that. That's hidden from them. Only you can see it as the GM. You double-click on it, and it's going to reveal these tentacles kind of coming up out of the pit towards the players. And we're going to run through this encounter. Now, this encounter, I suggest running it in the Theater of the Mind map. I'll show you that right here. But you can turn it on this way, right here. This is how I'd start it. Double-click. So these tentacles come up. So let's go ahead and run this encounter in the Theater of the Mind map. So here we are in the Theater of the Mind map, and we're going to bring our character in here just to show you how this works. So we have our characters, and you're going to see there's an invisible square that marks the tile. Only you, the DM, can see this invisible square. So you're going to put all the characters down here below, and the way that you're going to run this encounter, it's fairly simple, is there are 5 tentacles, right? Any character that's standing on the edge of those steps, trying to make it to the other side of the steps, coming to the edge of the pit, anything doing with that pit, trying to jump to the other side of the pit, they're going to have to succeed a strength or dexterity save of DC 14. Otherwise, one of the tentacles is going to grab them. There's 5 tentacles. Each tentacle on the tentacle's turn can make an attack. When it makes an attack, it's a saving throw. So the character has to roll a strength or dexterity save DC 14. If they fail that, they are grappled and they're going to take 3d6 worth of damage. Okay? A character on their turn can go ahead and use an action to try to free themselves. Again, it's a DC 14 to try to free themselves. Each tentacle is an AC 18 with 50 hit points. So let me show you how I would run this. I'm going to just drag this over here and show you. Well, I'll just turn it off. I'll show you. So we've got this scene here. So the first thing you do is you turn it on. This tile, by the way, is off right now. So to turn on the tile, there's a button over the side, which, again, the players can't see. But there's a button over the side. Just turn it on. The tile reveals itself. So now you're going to play Theater of the Mind. The characters are on the edge of these steps. They can see there's another room across this pit. They're trying to figure out a way to get across, right? Now, you're going to roll, you can roll a combat initiative here and just put them in initiative. But any time a player takes an action, or they're standing on the edge of the pit, or take an action, they're going to have to make that dexterity save. If they fail the save, take the character and drop them and place them inside of this tile. Then, when it's time for the tentacle to attack them because they failed their save, double click on the tile. I'll show you how this works. So I'll just delete the stuff in the chat log. So watch the chat log. You as the GM double click in this tile and right. It'll play the sound automatically, and it will roll damage for any character that's in this tile. This allows you to have 2, 3, or 4 characters in this tile. You just double click on it once. All the characters that are in that tile will suffer that 3d6 worth of damage if they fail that strength or dexterity save. Now there's something else interesting to this pit situation, which makes it very deadly. If a character is restrained for 3 rounds, right? They fail that DC save 14 3 times in a row. On the end of that round, so the 3rd round, the black tentacles are going to attempt to pull it down into the abyss and eat the character, or whatever happens down in that black bottomless pit. Who knows? But I'll let your minds run with that. The creature, the tentacles, you're going to roll a d20 plus 3 against the character's strength ability score. So if your character has a 17 strength, well, you're going to, as the GM or DM, going to roll a d20 plus 3. You need to beat that 17 strength. If you succeed, you've pulled the character down the abyss. The character's gone forever. That character is dead, right? Now, this seems super deadly, and it is. However, the probability of this happening is quite low for a couple of reasons. Number one, the character has to be caught for 3 entire rounds. So it's going to have to fail 3 DC 14 dexterity or strength saves, right? Last but not least, if you destroy 2 of the tentacles, leaving only 3, 2 or more of the tentacles destroyed, the remaining tentacles will retreat down into that bottomless pit. So is it probable that a character could die? Yes. It's possible, but the probability is going to be very low. But I am the kind of person that always likes to have that death right sitting on the edge there. Combat is not a speed bump or an obstacle. There is a threat, just like there is in all of them, to actual death in this one, even though the probability is quite low. So that's how you run this. If you've destroyed the tentacles or destroyed 2 of them, just double click on this. The tentacles have gone back down into the bottomless pit, and it's over. that brings us to across a pit. So if the across pit, let's bring those tentacles back down again. There we go. I'll move these guys over here. All the tentacles retreating, make them invisible again. Okay, so if you get across a pit, you're going to get up to this priest room here. And I've got another Theater of the Mind map for that. Let's bring that up here. So you're in this priest room here, and we'll bring our character in. Why not? And if you search around this priest room, this is a place where, you know, you're going to see this room lies in disarray, scattered and shattered furnishings, remnants of what was once a preparation or a private chamber. You're not too sure. But among the debris in here, they're going to find a skeleton. And on this skeleton, you're going to notice there's a ring on one of the bony fingers. There's an amulet around its neck. It's holding a rod in one hand. In the other hand, it's got this kind of scroll that's kind of this parchment that's kind of almost faded. Now, if a character tries to remove any of those objects from the skeleton, a shadow priest will emerge, and this is the shadow priest of the dead Dusk Elf priest, that's the skeleton there, and will begin to attack the characters immediately. It's only one shadow priest. It's not going to be that difficult, but that's going to happen if the characters try to remove anything from that. But what they're going to find is they're going to find a note with the Dusk Elf, and there's actually a PDF in here. By the way, you can download this PDF. It's for free. It's found on the website. On my Ko-fi page, you can find it. So what this is the shadow priest, the Dusk Elf priest, that cast the moon spell locking the door. And he talks about here, this scroll's got to be centuries old. And I'll just read it to you because it's pretty interesting. Faith unto the twilight's queen, the cherished night fae, guardian of slumber. She hath been under siege by the envious fae sisters who covet her dominion and our devotion. The night faith has withdrawn beyond the threshold of our realm. By the incantation of a potent lunar enchantment have I safeguarded her and the portal, even as the fae sisters destroy our temple and seal the passage. I, the elder Dusk Elf priest, the final remnant of our kin, have exerted every measure to shield our queen, the cherished night fae, and the preserver of dreams. Only in prayer do I entreat that the moon's portal remains concealed and guards her. In due course shall Shelwyn unlock the gateway, liberate our queen, and restore equilibrium. Now, this might cause a little bit of confusion among your party. Why? Because your parties probably align themselves in some form or fashion with the Fae. And they're reading about this Night Fae here. And that there was some battle between the Fae. And he's hoping for some equilibrium. Is this a good Fae, bad Fae? You know, who's to say, right, at this point? So it adds this kind of layer of mystery here. You do know that there's some kind of enchantment, moon enchantment, that's protecting some portal or something. You're going to find out later. This is a player handout PDF. You can give it to them within Foundry. You can also download the PDF of this and share it with them on Discord, or if you're playing at the tabletop, print it out and share it with them. But this is what's found in the priest's hand. Okay, so as we retreat from the priest room, we have to go back across this abyss here. It's pretty scary, that pit. And we head north. There's a hallway north here. And when we get up here to the north, we find a Night Fae, a statue of the Night Fae. And you're going to say at the center, as you enter the room, your gaze is drawn to a weathered remains of a statue standing proudly at the center, facing a spring. There's a spring of water over here. You can see right over here. And I've got a Theater of the Mind map for this as well. I will show you. Despite the face being worn, the remnants suggest that this once embodied some revenant goddess. This is a statue of the Night Fae, and this is healing spring waters. We'll talk about how this works. Now, to the north wall, you can see some crumbling up here, right? They see this crumbling up here. Again, I've got a hidden door here. You can describe to the players. It looks like it's crumbled up pretty well. There are some falling rocks. It's going to take them about an hour to clear that. It's a DC 18th strength check to do that. If they fail the strength check, it adds another 1d4 hours to clear. Like if they pulled some rocks, all of a sudden they fail and some more rocks cave back in. It's going to take them another 1d4 hours to clear this path. Very similar to the other path, but this is going to be a little easier to get through than the main entrance that is crumbled down. Now let's talk about the Night Fae here. So we have the spring. I'm going to go ahead and activate this Theater of the Mind map, and we'll bring our characters here. So our characters here, you've got the statue, and you've got this weird spring of water down here. And if the players run a nature check, DC 12 reveals that there's healing properties in this murky green water. Now, if you roll 18 or higher on that nature check, you're going to realize the waters do heal, but they may have some side effects. You don't know what those side effects are. So anyone that immerses themselves in the water or drinks this water, they're going to heal themselves for 4d8 hit points. This only works once per long rest. 48 hit points, it's a lot. However, if they're not an evil aligned character, they're going to have to succeed a despair check. Now, a despair check is a wisdom saving throw DC 10 or better. Otherwise, they're affected by a random despair. And we've got the despair table right here. Apathy, dread, or insane. Now, despair can be with calm emotions or greater restorations. You can get rid of despair because they have some negative consequences like disadvantages on dexterity checks or certain types of saves. So go ahead and read that. The despair check and other Gothic horror rules, which are extrapolated and changed, is from the Dungeon Master's Guide, Dungeon Master's variant. You can find them all in the campaign guide. There's a link here, but I'll also put a link to the campaign guide down below. So, you know, it's a give-take. Right, you want those 48 hit points restored? Great. Take those 48 hit points. You're going to have to roll a despair check if you're not evilly aligned. If you fail that, you could have some disadvantages there on dexterity or something else. So it's pretty cool here. So let's jump back to the cave. So if they don't go through here, we're going to go to the other possible exit. So our adventure is heading back down through here. We've been through here. This is where, if they've transcribed it, the shadow priests come out and begin to attack them. So they're going to go up to this cave over here. You remember there was a cave up here that they could travel to and head up. There we go. And we get into this main big chamber. We're looking at this from the player character's point of view. Now, in this main big chamber here is a large cavern. And in the top of the large cavern, it goes up, you know, probably 100 feet or higher. There's swarms of bats up on the ceiling. The players can't see that. They're there sleeping. As soon as all the player characters get into this chamber, the swarm of bats comes flying down. It's 6 swarms, and I've put them right in here. You can see them. Right, just light them up here. Oh, there we go. And they come flying down. Whoops. Let me grab these guys here. There's 2 of them. And the bats, you know, these are swarms of bats. They're not going to be, you know, 22 hit points, CR quarter. I mean, for a late level, it's not that big of a deal. However, the bats gain surprise on the first round. First rounds, the bats get to attack. There's something else that happens here. Because there's so many bats, all the characters have disadvantage on dexterity checks and saves during this encounter. The bats at the beginning of the 3rd round, any remaining bats swarms will fly out of the cavern and they won't return for 12 hours. So this is more of a frustrating obstacle. They've waken up a bunch of bats that have probably been sleeping here undisturbed. You know, no one's ever come in this cave. They attack the players in a surprise. They swarm around the players. The players, you know, they can't see. They're blinded by these bats. Disadvantage on dexterity checks and saves, and then the bats fly out. All right. Again, this is one of those counters to help dissipate resources. That's the point of this encounters, right? Reducing the resources. Now, if the characters head to this little north, there's a little cavern up here to the north. Okay, and this small cavern has a little bit of water in here. This is the only reprieve that your party will find in this cavern here, right? In this place, if they need to take a short rest. if you need to take a break, if you want to do a session, in your session, this would be a good place to have it. There's a pool of water here. There's no discernible harmful effects of the water. It does taste stale, so if they need to fill up their water skins, they can. It's natural spring water. It's just a little stale. It's been in this cave. There's no monsters and creatures in here. This is just a place for them to take a rest, to take a break, because this cavern is deadly. You know, this is level 8 to level 10, and things are going to go sideways fast and can get dangerous. Okay, so now as they move out here, they can continue up past the bat cavern and a large one, and they're going to get into this windy, twisted cave here. Okay, and in this windy, twisty cave is, and I got a Theater of the Mind map for this. Let's just, I think it's right here. We have this cave here, and in this long cave, we have 3d4 plus 2 dark mantles. So you're going to roll up 3d4 plus 2. I would roll that private. You got 6 dark mantles. Now, what are dark mantles? If you haven't played with these creatures before, they are awesome. Let me show you what they look like. I've got some really nasty looking picture of these things. Here we go. Look at those things. So let me tell you about these things. They hang from the ceiling, and they camouflage themselves to look like stalactites hanging from the ceilings. They're going to drop from the ceiling, and they're sort of like a squid or an octopus. They're going to try to land on the head and envelop the head of the adventurer. Now, what these creatures do, which is really nasty, let's take a look at it. They're not that strong. They're only 22 hit points. But when they land, they're going to do 1d6 plus 3 damage, which is not a lot of damage. But once they get around the head, that character is blind. It's engulfed the entire head, right? The player cannot see anything at this point. The player creature can detach the dark mantle by making a DC 13 strength check as an action on their turn. Now, you might be saying, hey, it's a CR half rating, only 22 hit points. The way that you would run these things, and this is my suggestion, is if you remember the movie Alien, right, when the face hugger jumps out of the egg and gets on the face, right? You remember when they tried to get that off of John Hurt's face? I mean, they were trying to cut the fingers or the legs off the face hugger. It just became difficult. It had acid for blood. That's what this is. This is creative thinking, because if this thing lands on an adventurer's head, anybody else trying to use a sword, a dagger, trying to poke this thing on the head, the way I would run this is, yeah, if you swing that sword, or you poke it with a dagger, or try to use some kind of damaging spell, you're going to do at least 50% of that damage to your party member, perhaps even something else. So I would make it that 50% of that damage is going to be done to him. And if a player rolls some kind of critical or something like that, or some huge amount of damage, you know, that player character is going to suffer damage. You might kill the dark mantle on their head, right? Or try to pull it off. I would probably, you know, make the DC strength check a little bit more difficult, maybe 18 or something. You can incorporate some other ideas. But you remember, as this is going off, this isn't one dark mantle. These are just falling down from the ceiling. In this case, you got 6 of them falling down. And then, you know, one's like crawling up your back. They only move 10 feet, but it's crawling. You pick it up and you throw it down, and it's crawling up on another one, and one's flying up. And so you're trying to get one off another one. I mean, this is going to be kind of a scene in chaos. And you're in a dark cave, right? So these things are just dropping from the ceiling. I wouldn't have them drop all at once. I'd have like 1 or 2 drop, maybe another 2 or 3 drop. You want to run this as a scary encounter, especially with the one character is going to be blind. They can't see anything. They're just trying to... Remember in here, I don't think they can breathe. They're blinded and unable to breathe. So they're going to start choking, you know, as this thing is just, you know, on their head. I imagine inside this dark mantle thing, just like kind of like an octopus, it's got like some kind of beak, and it's trying to drill into the head and suck the brains out of the adventurer who's trying to pull this thing off. So you could even run this if you wanted to make it more exciting. Run it on a timer. You know, if the I would make it, if the dark mantle succeeds in this hit, every round, if they don't pull it off, it's going to do another 1d6 plus 3 worth of damage automatically, because it's stuck on the head. That's how I'd run this. So I would just, you know, amp it up, allow the players to do some creative thinking. Think of this as, again, as I mentioned, that alien scene with the face huggers, and you're trying to deal with the face huggers, right? This is not a straight up monster combat, This is, you're dealing with something that's attached to another player character. This kind of reminds me almost of the, if you remember the Count's Manor with the wolf helm, when one player puts on the wolf helm trying to get that helmet off, right? Similar situation. You're going to be dealing with this. I actually really like this Dark Mantle encounter. And Dark Mantles aren't used enough, and I think they're great for this. So they've been attached up into the ceiling, ready to drop down. Oh man, I could just imagine the horror of this situation here. You can run this as Theater of the Mind map if you want to. I've got a Theater of the Mind map, or if you want to run it in Diamandi's Gorgeous Cave map, you've got that here. Now, when we exit out of the final cave, we get into the main chamber here. And there's 3 ways to get into this chamber. Remember, the first way here, and I'll just light up the map for you, the first way was through this main stone area, which would take you 1d10 plus whatever ridiculous hours to move all of this, because this has been sealed off when the phase kind of shook the stone pillar and destroyed the temple. You have another way through, which is over here. That was in that healing waters with the Fae statue to get through here. Or you could go through the cave dealing with the bats and the Dark Mantles to get into this main area. Now, let's just describe this main area. And I've got a Theater of the Mind map, some cool stuff here. So as you step into this colossal ruins of the temple, a faint glow emanates from a crevice way up high. There's a blue glow in here. There's broken columns scattered about. Now, in the center of this room, right, you have this pillar. And on top of this pillar is a floating orb. It looks like the moon. It's kind of just sitting there floating. On the stone floor, right, the marble floor, there's images of moon in 8 phases of the moon. And to the north, there's a door. Now, let's take a look at this door. I'll show you the door here really quick. Here's the door. Oh, there's the door here. Door is solid rock. There is no way to open this door. Strength checks won't open it, anything. It's sealed with magic. And here's the temple. So you're in this temple, and you see this kind of, in the center of the temple, this sphere floating, right, in there. And it looks sort of like the moon. Now, there's a puzzle here, and I'll show you how this puzzle works. And this works with Monk's active tile triggers. It's really cool. So the characters are going to have to figure out how this puzzle works. And the puzzle works like this. If a player touches one of these, they can step on it, they can touch it, but making any action to purposely touch one of those images on the floor, in the stone floor of the moon phases, you over here are going to double click on it and it's going to light up. So let's say they touch this one over here. Our adventurer goes over here and goes, hey, I'm going to go over here and touch this tile on the floor. If they touch that tile on the floor, you just double click this and the tile begins to light up, right? Whatever ones they touch, you just double click over here and the tiles light up. Now, this is how the moon puzzle works. When you enter the temple, right, the players are going to have to know what the moon phase was. And how do they know that? Well, we have this beautiful calendar that was rendered by Tusu. This is free. You can download it for free on our website. I'll put a link down there. This tells you, it's a full calendar with all the moon phases. So the players are going to have to recognize what the moon was like when they entered in the temple, right? And what they're going to have to do in the temple for the moon phase puzzle is they're going to have to begin by touching the phase of the moon that matches the phase of the moon when they entered in the temple. If they don't, let's say they start with, well, let's say they start with this one. And let's say the phase of the moon was a new moon. It was a black moon. But they start with this one. It lights up. As soon as they touch the next moon one, regardless of which one it was, because this is the wrong one, let's say they go touch this one, the full moon next. You're going to click the fail button. This is what happens. What happens is all the moon that were lit up go dark, and the orb in the middle blasts out this kind of wave of energy. It knocks all the characters prone, and they're going to suffer damage. all the characters that are in the cavern are going to suffer damage. This thing just sends out this wave of energy, just knocks all the characters prone. They all suffer damage. The damage that they're going to suffer is 3d8 of force damage. So if they touch, they start with the incorrect one and go to the next one. If they do them out of sequence, anything they do out of sequence, you're just going to hit the fail button. You can just do this over and over again. Let's say they start with this one, and they go to this one. As soon as they do the wrong one, you hit fail. And they'll go out, and it'll take more damage. Okay? The way it works correctly is if they know the moon phase when they walked in. Let's say it's the waxing gibbous, this one here. They have to step on them in the correct order of the moon phase of the moon, which in this case is counterclockwise. So it would be this one, the next, this one, this one, this one. Touch them in this order until all of them are lit. So once they pick the first one, that's correct with the moon phase outside, and they go in order, which happens to be counterclockwise, not clockwise, and they start lighting these up, then they're successful in opening up the moon portal. Until then, every time they fail, just click the fail button here and they start going on one at a time. And then just this force wave just hits them with more damage. If they're successful, right? Let's say they've done it, they've lit up all the, they've lit them all up. You hit the success button. And you can see the image changes here. The door changes its image. This is sound, this beam of light from the orb shines on the door, and the door is unlocked. And the room starts, this weird presence and energy fills the room. It starts changing this purple. Now, this is the way I would run it. I did set this up for Theater of the Mind. It's really, really cool. Let's check this out. So we have the Moon Temple here, right? I'm going to activate that. I got to activate it. We're going to put our character in here. If they were successful, right? Let's say they're successful on the battle map. I would put all my characters here in the Moon Temple Theater of the Mind map and then click the start button. Again, the characters can't see the start button. Well, you can. Just click the start button. Everything happens automatically for you. Check this out. So what happened there is Monk's Tile Trigger moved all the characters to another scene, which is the door scene. The light from the orb that was floating lights up the door. You see an image of a magical symbol on the door, kind of like the Mines of Moria, that disappears. Now the door is unlocked and you got this kind of purple haze. Purple kind of shadow smoke. And this is how you're going to conclude. The characters can't see this. You're going to click this awake button, and this is what's going to happen. That's right. A shadow dragon is going to wake up and come through that door, and you're going to be in your final encounter here in here. So we have the shadow dragon up here. You're going to make them visible, bring them out here in front of the door, and you've got your final encounter with a shadow dragon. So that priest, he locked the door, and the last guardian to guard on the other side of that door when the shadow fae escaped was a shadow dragon. So we've got a shadow dragon here. This is the stat block of the red shadow dragon. Pretty deadly, 178 hit points. Multi-attack, 3 attacks. It's got that deadly shadow breath that's on a charge. That's a 30-foot cone with 16d6 worth of damage. I'm just going to run that just for a second just to check it out because it's just so cool. Here we go. Shadow breath. He's going to shadow breath him. There we go. And the amount of damage this thing does, I don't even, 56 damage. Just if you're using some of those really cool third-party modules, you can actually have some animated effects of that Shadow Breath coming out. That's on a recharge. It recharges on a 5. This is going to be a nasty but fun fight. So yes, you have a dragon now, an actual dragon to fight in Ravenloft. That is the final encounter in part 1 of the Pillar of Ravenloft. Happens here at the entrance. There's no way to get inside until you've defeated this Shadow Dragon. Then once you do that, you go through the door and get to part 2, which will be coming out shortly. Thanks again for watching this video. Make sure you smash that like, hit the subscribe button. Huge shout out to all of my legendary members making this happen. If you would like to support me, you can. There's a link in the description down below, getting access to all the bonus content, the Foundry modules, voice acting sound files, tokens, and so much more. Until next time, this is Parm King, and may all your rolls be critically successful.